Thanks, Gabe. We asked Steve to come up and speak about Mr. Woolworth, Norman Woolworth, who is the Bluegrass two-year-old filly trots are titled the Norman Woolworth Memorial. Steve, I have memories of Mr. Woolworth. I didn't know him personally, but he was an avid sportsman and horseman, and he loved standard-bred racing.
Yes, that's correct. He owned Stoner Creek Stud. He and his partner, David Johnston, bought Stoner Creek Stud in Paris, where Hunterton Farm is now. We leased the farm in 1963, I believe. He bought it from the John D. Hertz from Hertz Rent-A-Car man from Chicago. Had started the farm, and it was a thoroughbred farm at the time. And he and Norman, or he and David, his partner, purchased the farm and had almost unparalleled success. The main success that Norman had was his tremendous stallion, Meadow Skipper. And Norman owned him and stood him at stud, and he pretty much started at stud not as a heralded superstar by any means. He was a good horse, but after his first crop, I believe with Most Happy Fella and Albatross, and it just went from there.
Meadow Skipper changed the breed, and it was a bit unexpected. I mean, I'm old enough to remember that Overtrick was just as good, if not better, when they were racehorses, but Meadow Skipper was a far better sire and certainly changed the pacing line. And Mr. Woolworth also stood Neville Pride out at Stoner Creek, what eventually became Hunterton Farm. He just wanted the best horses.
Yeah, obviously you, with the stallion farm, you live and die by the stallions that you have. And Meadow Skipper was just a true sensational stallion, because not only did he produce, he did some remarkable things in my opinion, because he was able to produce not only colts but fillies, but then he reproduced his stallion. His sons were better than him, and so he just perpetuated his sire line. And even today you can just go back and through the pedigrees, and there he is. But he was voted, 17 years ago they had who was the greatest basketball player of the 20th century, and he was voted the greatest stallion of the century.
Most Happy Fella, I think, was first. Albatross, Cam Fella right down the line. And Mr. Woolworth also campaigned a serious stable with, to my knowledge, mostly with Stanley Dancer through the years that I was aware, including Duenna, 1983 Hambletonian winner.
That's
Zoot
right.
Suit.
Yep.
He had interesting names for the horses. Glad
Well,
Rags.
that was his big thing. That he had a mare. Probably the one that was probably the easiest one that he came up with names with was Exciting Speech. He's a dam of Bonefish who won the Hamiltonian, and one of the funny names that he had was Banana Peel, out of Exciting Speed, and Panty Raid, and so he took great pride in spending a lot of times and trying to come up with not only funny but clever names. And I think he probably drove the registrar crazy on trying to slip out some slip names through over the years. But the one thing that I think really separated him from a lot of people was he wasn't only just with harness racing, but he was just a true sportsman. I remember my brother was a farm manager at Stoner Creek for many, many years, and that's how we ended up, Cindy and I, coming to Stoner Creek, is the relationship that we had with Norman. But I can remember when Cindy and I came in '96, he would come to the farm, and he lived in Connecticut and at a place in Florida, and he ended up, he would come and comment about the U.S. Open tennis, or he would talk about the basketball things and whatnot. And so he was more than just, he was up on all of that. And what was interesting about him was he thought it was so strange that you didn't know that Jimmy Connors had just beat somebody in the 4th round at Wimbledon and that kind of thing. So he was a true interesting person, but very beloved, but also very good for the sport.
He was a great man, and we memorialize him with the races tonight. Steve, thanks for taking the time to talk about Mr. Woolworth.
Thank you.
Race